going to start the night with student of Bitcoin. He's going to talk about why Bitcoin is beneficial for businesses. And I'm just going to let him go ahead and take the mic and take it from here, and let's get this thing rolling. Let's have some fun.
Good evening, everyone. I'm student at Bitcoin. I'm Santosh is the other alias I use in the real world. I'm here to talk about Bitcoin for businesses. So to give you some context of why I'm here and why I even got to talk about this topic, I spent the last decade helping organizations adopt technology. So I've worked in SaaS companies, fintech, supply chain, healthcare. All I've done is help companies adopt technology. And I've been falling down the Bitcoin rabbit hole for many years now. And as of late, I've been asking myself, Bitcoin's purpose was becoming a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. So how do we bring this to the masses? Right now, it's been used for a variety of things, but it's not really being used as an electronic cash system yet. So as I was noodling through this, I came up with this random idea of, hey, let's do this 100-day Bitcoin challenge where I am the catalyst for a Bitcoin interaction. So I came up with this whiteboard, and I held this whiteboard in all kinds of streets. I went to the mall. I got kicked out of the mall. I went to the street. Yes, it's a true story. I went to the streets. I went to Bankers Hall in Calgary, right in front of the bankers, held a sign. No one wanted to talk to me. Went to the ski slope, gave away free Bitcoin. Only one person wanted free Bitcoin. In all this time, I realized that my time wasn't exactly used wisely, going through one individual at a time to influence them, to learn about Bitcoin. And that's when I had the light bulb moment, which is, dude, you've been doing this for your career this whole time. Just merge this together. So that's when I orange pilled myself by saying, you need to talk to businesses to create network effects. So rather than going to each individual here and be like, you need to adopt Bitcoin, if I go into one business that can touch all of you, well, I've indirectly touched all of you, and now I create network effects. So that's sort of the background of why I'm here talking about this particular topic. I'm gonna hit my timer. I've got 30 minutes as per Laserman, so I'll do my best to answer any questions as they come up. If the question is going to take me a little bit more time to answer, let's just park it till the end and we'll take it to the end, if that's okay. To get a pulse check in the room, does anyone here own a business? Okay, got a couple business owners, okay. How many here know business owners? Okay, so indirectly, a lot of you are associated with businesses, so that's good to know. With the 30 minutes that I do have, which is quite limited, the outcome that I'm looking to achieve is that each and every one of you feel empowered to walk away and have a very basic conversation with your business owner friends, whether they're friends or family. That's the outcome I'm looking to achieve. We don't need to really discuss too much about the problem or define the problem. The Bitcoin white paper did that for us. And it clearly stated in the introduction of the Bitcoin white paper that right now, to conduct commerce on the internet, we need third parties. Why do we need third parties? Because in case of any disputes, you need the bank to interact as the middleman to decide, is that dispute correct or incorrect? So valid or invalid, and who exactly gets that money is ideally what currently happens in our current system. And Bitcoin looks to solve that. So the problem was already defined by the Bitcoin white paper. So that's what we're looking to address today. Before we even get into Bitcoin, it's extremely important to understand the status quo and how we pay during our regular day-to-day life. A show of hands, or you can just say it out loud. If you walked into, let's say, a Walmart or a No Frills, groceries $100. How do you pay for it? Cash, credit, debit, prepaid, credit card, credit,
Yeah, credit.
cash. Who pays cash? Cash. 2 cash. Anyone else cash? 3 cash. 4. Would you pay for $100 purchase in cash? Yeah. Okay. So we're a room of what? 25, 30. So that's 4 people. So it's clear that card is a predominant sort of form of payment. Is that fair in the room?
Yeah.
Okay. Everyone's nodding their heads. So the next question I've got for the group is, out of all the payments that occur in Canada in 2022, what percentage do you think occurred in cash?
5%.
5?
Yeah, 10%.
I heard 10. Okay.
Post-COVID, I was crushed, so probably 5%.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this data is for 2022, and it was 10, but it is going to be dwindling down. So it's likely coming closer to 5 now. What this tells us is Canada is trending towards becoming a cashless society. So we already are accustomed to digital forms of payment. It just so happens, you know what?
I'm going to get this out so I have a physical item to speak.
We're just accustomed to these plastic things. We can't program these plastic things to have Bitcoin in them. It just hasn't become predominant yet. This card here is a TD card and it uses Visa. So Visa is the payment rail that sends information when you tap this card. So we'll get into that. So far, everyone with me?
Yeah.
Okay. A typical customer journey with a card, when you walk into a Walmart, you go to the till, the cashier says, that'd be $100, please. And you either tap your card, so this is, excuse me, the 4 people that pay with cash, but for the others, you either tap your card, you insert, you swipe, you enter your PIN, and assuming you have the money, you get an approved message, you get, great, and you walk away with your groceries. That's typically what you see from your customer journey of using the card. If you open your bank app, it says, hey, you got a purchase of $100, but it's pending. It's not yet finalized. It usually takes a couple days for it to go from pending to finalized. Anyone know why that's the case? Go ahead.
The banks have to reconcile.
Exactly. So, go ahead. Processors. So there's a variety of different reasons of what's happening in the background, but ultimately, the duration between pending and finalized is money moving from one bank account to another bank account. And that can take anywhere between 24 to 72 hours.
Business days.
Business days,
Yeah.
yes. They don't, not on holidays. In terms of processing, there are quite a few parties involved. There's the customer, so myself. There's the business, let's just use no frills. There's the business's bank, which is known as an acquirer. There's the card network. In this case, it's Visa, so you've got Visa, MasterCard, and Amex. What they do is they provide the infrastructure for the information when you tap to be sent to banks and receive it back. That's what they do. And you've got the customer's bank, which is my bank now, and that here is TD. Anyone who really understands this, pardon me, I've excluded payment processors for simplicity, but there is another party here that's a payment processor. Everyone with me so far?
Yeah.
Great. In terms of credit card processing, there's 3 main steps. The first step, when I go tap that card in the no frills is going to send my card information to my bank to say yay or nay. Is this valid or invalid? So that's the authenticate process, or the step, sorry. The next step is to authorize. This is when the bank receives my information and goes, okay, I verified this information. Yes, no frills, you can charge this card the $100. Good so far?
Yeah.
Okay. So the moment it's authorized, that's when the $100 that you see in the till says approve, and now I walk out with my groceries. If you open your bank app, it says $100 no frills, and you're good to go. The last step is what's time consuming, and that's settlement. Settlement is when money is being moved from my account to no frills account for that $100. And that can typically take up to 5 business days, depending on which card network, which bank, which payment processor. Is there a weekend in between?
Yeah.
So that business owner does not get the money immediately. There's a lag time before they actually receive the funds when the card is used for a purchase. I've oversimplified it here. There's a lot more going on here, and I'm just going to skim through this, but that's the actual flow of events between all these parties. But let's skip over all that given the limited time we have. On top of all this, businesses need to be aware of fraud and chargeback. And fraud's a pretty big deal nowadays. Business owners here, do you guys get fraud? Yeah? What kind of fraud? And how much out of a percentage would you say is like fraud occurrence out of all your transactions? Less than 6%. So it's at least 4% then. Okay. So immediately out of your bottom line, 4% is fraud, and that's just gone. Okay. Another business owner, anyone has any comments on fraud? Not much? Okay. So what is fraud? Fraud occurs when someone either steals my physical card or steals my identity and uses that to make a purchase online or in store. Now, if Laserman steals my card,
Got it.
I don't see it, he goes to Mandarin. He goes to Mandarin and he buys everyone dinner. Okay, that's probably like $1,000 charge. I don't notice because I don't have notifications on my app right now. I go in a couple days later and I go, holy shit, I didn't go to Mandarin, that's $1,000. What do? I immediately call TD and I say, hey, there's $1,000 charge on my account. This doesn't look right. TD goes, okay, it's probably fraud. We're gonna cancel your card. We'll issue a new card, thank you. And we will dispute this with Mandarin. What do they do next? They go to Mandarin and they say, hey, we're charging you back for this $1,000 because this customer did not actually make this charge. It's an invalid transaction. Now Mandarin has the option to provide proof that if this is a legitimate transaction or not. If they cannot provide proof, they not only have to pay the $1,000 back to my account because I lost $1,000 from that transaction.
It's my laptop. There we go.
They also have to pay the bank a dispute or administrative fee. That could be anywhere between $20 to $100 depending on the bank or the card network. Has that ever happened to you? Have you had chargebacks?
Yeah, chargebacks, and not just chargeback, they increase the fee.
They increase the fee.
For your next transaction.
For the next transaction. So your processing fee for the next transaction because you had chargeback increased? 35 bips. Okay, so 0.35%. So we got a living example here. Because she's had fraud and chargeback, the overlords to be that help her accept payments have increased her fee by 0.35%, which obviously sucks for her business because now she loses 0.35% for other people's mistake, not any of her own. Everyone's good so far?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like taxes.
It's like taxes.
Yeah.
It's like taxes for accepting card payments.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for this $100 purchase that I made at No Frills, how much do you think No Frills actually got if I used a credit card? You can just shout out a number.
98, because they take 2%.
Okay, 98? 95? 98? 93, okay. Pretend, yeah, if Amex decides to change more, then it's possible. This is just an average. If you use the average MasterCard or Visa card with typical fees, they end up with around $98. So who takes a cut? The bank takes a cut. That's the person that issued the card, so TD takes a cut. Visa takes a cut, and the payment processor, that's the machine that we tap, they take a cut. So No Frills didn't get $100. No Frills got less than $100. So without even doing anything, they've already lost a portion of their revenue because they accepted a card payment. Of course, this number like deviates depending if it's an Amex, that might be a 96. If it's a debit card, it'll be a 99.3. So take that with a grain of salt, but 98 is a ballpark. To make things worse, what do businesses do? They take all their revenue, they can either invest it or they store it in their local currency, which is the Canadian dollar. And we all know what happens to the dollars, or any fiat currency, is that it inflates and it loses value over time. So that means the business is not only paying fees for accepting card payments, storing it in fiat money is also making them lose value, which from a business owner must not feel good. So to recap, a bunch of problems with the current system. You are relying on third parties, so you've got banks, card networks, and payment processors. You're losing revenue due to fraud, chargeback, fees. You've got to deal with inflation, which none of us control. We have no choice but to deal with it. And last but not least, you don't get money immediately. So for the business owners that are accepting payments, you have to wait up to 5. Go ahead.
I was going to say, they also pass on to the price of the object.
Correct.
To the consumers.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I believe it was a couple of weeks ago or a month ago that Canada passed a new law for any business under, I think, $250,000 revenue. You're allowed to pass it on, or there's some new law that came to be a month ago. So I need to brush up on that, but I did read a headline about it. So in a nutshell, the current system sucks. It does not help businesses. The current system helps the consumer. So if I ever scream fraud, that Visa card and TD will help me, not the merchant, because I'm protected, not the merchant. Okay, we're at 12 minutes, so we're almost halfway there. So I'm gonna zip through Bitcoin a little. So enter Bitcoin. Knowledge of Bitcoin. How many people in the room here feel comfortable explaining basics of Bitcoin to their neighbor? Okay, so about half the room feel comfortable. So the other half, I'm gonna zip through this because I need to get through a little bit more. So at any point, if it's too much, stop me, and I'll always be available afterwards to talk through it further. Bitcoin is nothing physical. Again, disclaimer for all the technical folks here, I've made it super simple. I'm not gonna go through all of Bitcoin. I'm just gonna make it simple, easy, and digestible. Also, all these doodles are my handwriting, so that's where these doodles are coming from.
You're good.
Thank you. So Bitcoin is nothing physical. It's digital money. It's just it's a ledger that's stored on the internet, and it tracks two things: the creation of Bitcoin and what happens to Bitcoin once it's created, where it moves, and where it's stored at its present moment. That's what this ledger tracks. So when someone says they own Bitcoin, the ledger is just stating that there is X amount of Bitcoin in some address, and the owner merely has access to that address. With me so far, everyone?
Yeah.
I like the head nods, thank you. Now, to compare Bitcoin transactions to credit card transactions, it was just the payment processors, the banks, and the card networks that had full control. They have full visibility of what's going on. You know nothing but your own account. When it comes to Bitcoin transactions, they're all broadcast publicly. Anyone can keep a copy. So any one of you can go home and choose to download the entire blockchain. All you need is an internet connection and 500 gigabytes of space if you want the entire blockchain. But anyone can do that in the room, assuming you have those two things. You don't need permission. You don't need to ask any consent. You can just do it as long as you have those two things. And the last thing too is very important for business owners. Bitcoin transactions are non-reversible. Once you send a transaction, that's it. There's no dispute, there's no return. Once it's sent, it's sent. Whoever sent it to you, that's it. There's no recourse unless you choose to send it back. As a business owner, you have that money. It's yours now. So 3 key properties that make it better than the current system that we're in. Everyone's good so far?
Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect. So now to actually talk about Bitcoin transaction processing. If it gets too much, please stop me. So let's say we just got Goldwyn & Sons in the building. They run a barbershop. So let's say I go to the barbershop and I pay with the Bitcoin transaction, or I make a Bitcoin transaction. So I get a haircut and I pay them $40 in Bitcoin. As soon as that transaction's made, that's broadcast to the network. When it's in the network, it's in this little holding pool of all the unconfirmed transactions. These unconfirmed transactions are gathered in these containers called blocks. Stay with me. And there are these computers on the sidelines that are just trying to guess this really big number. It's called proof of work, is a technical term, but let's just call it, you're playing the lottery by just trying to guess this really big number. The moment this computer guesses the right number, they're rewarded with Bitcoin. The moment they solve proof of work or they guess the right number, this pool of unconfirmed transactions, or this block, goes from an unconfirmed state to a confirmed state. And this is what is referred to as the blockchain, because you get blocks that form a chain to get you the blockchain. Questions? How's everyone doing? Okay. How many here know and understand the scarcity of Bitcoin? Okay, about half the room, so I'll get through this fairly quickly. Time check 15, okay. So this graph here, the red line shows the Bitcoin remaining to be created, and the block shows the reward per block. So in the previous screen, when that computer guesses that big number, they're rewarded with Bitcoin. So in 2009, when Bitcoin was first created, the reward for guessing that number was 50 Bitcoin. So imagine that person that got rewarded with 50 Bitcoin, right? But now in 2023, it's only 6.25. Next year, it'll become 3.125, and then 4 years later, it'll halve again. So in the Bitcoin realm, this is called the halving, where the reward per block halves every 4 years or 210,000 blocks. Now, the red line, you'll notice when it was first created, there was 21 million left to be created. And every 4 years, the amount left halves. So it's trending towards zero, and it's going to keep going towards zero until nothing is left. So Bitcoin scarcity is a very important attribute to understand. Unlike any other resource in the world, yes, there are scarce resources. We got water, you got gold, but there's nothing that's predictable that is given to us by code and math that we can go verify ourselves.
Yeah.
Question?
Yeah, probably in the universe. The aliens will be proud of us.
Can't deny that.
Can't deny. Yeah.
Can't-
Yeah.
A few Bitcoin properties. It's portable, so unlike cattle, gold, Bitcoin's just 12, 24 words. You can take it anywhere. Unlike this condo unit, you can't just flee from it. You can't flee with Bitcoin seed words. It's verifiable. It's a digital book of transactions. You can verify it because it's open source. Anyone can go take a look and make sure that it is indeed real. It's fungible. Fungible is an attribute of an item that's interchangeable with one another. So 2 diamonds are not the same. 2 gold coins can be melted to be the same. 2 Bitcoins are the same. I'm not going to get into ordinals, so let's not get there. But they are meant to be fungible. It's also durable because thousands of computers around the world are storing this information. So unless we can go to every single individual running a computer that's storing this information, you can't really destroy it because it's decentralized in nature. It's divisible. There's 100 million Satoshis in 1 Bitcoin, so you don't have to buy 1 Bitcoin. You can buy 1 Satoshi at a time and work your way up. And of course, it's open source, so it's open to all of us. Don't need permission. There's no restriction. You got an internet connection, you can Bitcoin. How's everyone feeling about Bitcoin Primer? Everyone's feeling all right?
Yeah.
Okay, any questions from that? Yes, go ahead.
There was a slide a couple back. You said there's transactions, right?
Yep.
What's the transacting?
So if you and I have, let's say, a Bitcoin wallet, that's how I send you Bitcoin. That's considered a transaction. So a transaction is the movement of funds.
How does that transaction equate to as a business owner? So somebody come and I provide products or services to them. So now I'm taking either credit card or cash or whatever it is. How could I use this transaction equate to cash or credit card in Bitcoin?
So if I follow the question correctly, is the question how to accept Bitcoin or how to convert it to cash or credit after?
How can I easily accept Bitcoin as an alternate form of payment?
Yeah.
Well, because you're comparing it to cash, credit card,
Right.
debit card, whatever.
Yeah.
How can I accept Bitcoin just as easily?
Yeah.
Right? And does that transaction cost money more than 2% that credit card costs me?
It's usually less.
Live demo. So I'm gonna get this to the tail end, but I'll just do the demo right now. Fees are paid by the consumer, not the merchant. So there are no fees for the merchant. So if you're the business owner, someone comes to you and says, hey, I'm buying this product. You tell them, well, it's $10. You enter $10 in this point of sale. You say, okay. It gives them a QR code, and they use the QR code to pay $10 in Bitcoin. And that's your Bitcoin transaction or accepting Bitcoin as a form of payment, as easy as that. So there's a variety of apps that are available that you download, and that'll give you access to accept Bitcoin as a form of payment.
And it gives you a QR code for that exact number, $10 or $50.
Correct.
Right, yeah. Okay.
So it goes from his,
Should we do a transaction?
so it
I
goes
mean,
from
yeah.
his wallet, customer's wallet, to merchant's wallet directly.
Directly.
Okay. And the transaction fee is
Paid by the
paid by
customer. Correct.
And what's the percentage of the?
So we're getting a little into like the complex territory. There's 2 ways to do transaction. There's the base chain and the Lightning Network. So Lightning Networks is instantaneous for smaller transaction amounts.
Right.
If I'm transacting for, let's say, $1,000, I would want to do it on the base chain, and the fees are higher on the base chain. So I'll get into that in just in the next section.
Okay.
But you're one step ahead of me, so thank you. But yes, we could do a transaction right after this, assuming I am staying on time. I got 9 minutes left, so I'll keep going. Okay. Bitcoin is corporate treasury. So corporate treasury is just a fancy word of being able to manage debt and your cash flow. So you've got public companies, private companies. Large companies typically have finance teams. They're involved with receiving money, paying money to all their contractors and suppliers. But if you're large enough, you typically have a corporate treasury team, and their entire goal is to make sure your finances are top notch, meaning you've got enough cash, liquidity to meet your debt, and making sure your investments are returning the best returns. So that's what this team really does. So why should a business treat Bitcoin as a form of corporate treasury? Well, a question I'd ask the group is, does anyone know what inflation will be next year?
I wish.
A made-up number? Okay. All right, I like that answer, a made-up number. So the benefits of Bitcoin is an inflation hedge immediately right off the bat, because we're playing against a made-up number versus 21 million that we can all go verify right now. The code is available, you can go read it if you'd like. Whereas when the overlords to be start printing, we don't know when they'll start, we don't know when it'll end, we have no control over it, we're sort of just in for the ride. So as former corporate treasury, you're hedging inflation. You're also diversifying, so what do businesses typically do? There's real estate, gold, stocks, bonds, equities. I already said stock, did I miss anything?
Art.
Art, sure, art, yes. Art, collectibles, you can choose, you can, cars, yeah, all kinds of stuff.
Anything scarce.
Anything scarce, thank you.
Anything that isn't the dollar.
Anything.
Anything.
So adding Bitcoin gives you further diversification. As a business owner, let's say all of a sudden you have an emergency on a Sunday. You need to send money across the world for a supplier, and you need to send them $10,000, $1,000, whatever that number is. Banks aren't open on Sundays. How are you going to wire transfer this money? There is no way. Are you going to wait till Monday to do this? Are you going to lose a supplier by doing that? Well, with Bitcoin, it's global liquidity 24/7. It never sleeps. So you can send that money instantly to your supplier across the world without ever relying on a bank. And lastly, innovation. So adopting Bitcoin as a business at this stage, Bitcoin's 14 years old, people still think of it as a scam. Adopting Bitcoin is, you're an early adopter. You are at the forefront of this leading technology and giving people an opportunity to learn it. And of course, you're not only going to interact with newer type of customers that want to pay with Bitcoin, you're also going to attract investors who want to invest in leading companies that are using cutting edge technology. So going back to the Goldman & Son barbershop, if they now become the first barbershop in Toronto to accept Bitcoin payments, well, they just got a bunch of customers in this room automatically, because I'm hoping some of you are willing to part ways with Bitcoin for services. How's everyone feeling with corporate treasury? I've got another 5 minutes left, so I gotta keep going.
Yeah, love it, love it, love it.
All right, great. Examples. So we've got quite a few public companies that already own Bitcoin as part of their corporate treasury. MicroStrategy obviously being the most infamous one, 150,000 Bitcoin. So when all of these smart people are doing it, the small guys should realize that it needs to happen at some point. Let's get on it. Start buying Bitcoin. As great as Bitcoin is, it does have some drawbacks. And it's not scalable in the same way that the Visa, MasterCard, and Amex are, as in it can't facilitate large amount of transactions in a given amount of time. So because of that, the Lightning Network was created, and the Lightning Network is like a layer 2 on top of Bitcoin. And the easiest way to explain it, it's like a highway of payments. You can send payments very quickly, and there's not fees associated with it. So going back to your question, if you are using the Lightning Network, the fees is negligible. There are low fees, but it's almost negligible. High level overview, the transactions happen in this Lightning Network. Also, this might be a bit nebulous. This topic alone can take a week to discuss, so come on the ride with me. So transactions occur off-chain in this Lightning Network, and transactions can be settled on the base layer immediately or whenever these users choose to do so. So the option is available on how these transactions settle. Nope. I did have a slide to describe Lightning Network in a little bit more detail, but given the time, I'm just going to skip over it, and we'll get into card networks versus Bitcoin. But Lightning Network questions is, yes, go ahead.
How do you feel about custodial Lightning wallets?
To be honest, whenever I hold this on the street, I have 10 seconds to get someone to get Bitcoin on their hands. Wallet of Satoshi is the easiest clicks, so it's like 5 clicks to go from, hey, you want free Bitcoin? Okay, App Store, Wallet of Satoshi, receive, versus writing down seed. So it's not ideal. My disclaimer to all these individuals is, hey, you're just starting off. This isn't ideal. You need to graduate to a better app. I am starting to use the custodial way depending on how much time I have. So this individual is giving me a couple minutes, then yes, I go a Blue Wallet or a Phoenix. But if there's no time and I only have like this to get someone on Bitcoin, then it's usually Wallet of Satoshi.
There's no KYC on that, right?
On Wallet of Satoshi?
Yeah.
No, I mean,
No, you
no.
just- yeah.
But it's custodial. That's the downfall of it,
Right.
Because you're trusting Wallet of Satoshi with those funds. But I'm sending them like 10 sats, 100 sats, so it's not like I'm sending them a large amount. So my honest opinion is, for Bitcoin adoption to grow, we're going to need some custodial services to start, but we need to be very diligent to get them off those custodial services. I'm sure people will argue to say, well, they should just start non-custodial. All they have to do is write 12 words. But getting someone to go from, yo, this is a scam, to, yeah, write these 12 words to get this 10 sats. That barrier to entry might work for some people, but for others, not so much. So I'm kind of in the middle with that. So I didn't give you a direct answer because it is one of those touchy topics in the space.
Yeah, it's tough because it makes you responsible for your keys and for your Bitcoin, right? Not you can't call your bank and complain like, hey, where, right? But
So
You can email Wallet of Satoshi.
can you?
Yeah, it'll recover your funds. If you delete the wallet,
yeah, you can back it up to,
phrase. Yeah, and then if you attach it to an email, you can back it up. But then you have KYC.
You can also send it to another address, like once you figure out.
Correct.
Custody, just
send it. So my disclaimer to anyone that I meet on the street is, hey, this is step one. The way you didn't run first day, you crawled, then you walked, and then you ran. I'm not getting you to the good app, because I usually ask, how much time do you have? You got 10 seconds? And you're like, I got 2 seconds. Well, I don't have time to do Wallet of Satoshi. So I just gauge by the individual I'm speaking with. But any loved one or any friend, it's always custodial, just to be clear. I'm not championing non-custodial, sorry, did I? I messed it up. You guys know what I meant. Yes. Card networks and Bitcoin. So let's sort of distinguish between the two. But the question for the group here about the unbanked in the world. Can you take a guess of how many people in the world are unbanked? 2.1?
Yeah. Maybe D. Yeah.
Okay. All right. According to the one that I found, it was 1.4. So now what do these 1.4 billion, or even let's say 2, what do these people do for transacting value with one another? They don't have a bank account.
Yeah.
They just hold cash.
Yeah.
That seems like a pretty shitty way to be buying items, trading items. What do? They just keep it under their mattress, or they keep it somewhere under their clothes. It doesn't sound great.
Susceptible to get stolen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the first thing when we're comparing between the card network and Bitcoin is access. So for the card networks, you need a bank account. I got to give my name, my address, my income, where I work, my gender potentially, my age. Bitcoin, you don't need all that. You can just access it without any of that information. For control, you've got the banks, you've got the payment processors that are required because it's centralized. Bitcoin is decentralized. It's open to anyone. You can download the entire blockchain if you want it when you go home. It's just a limiting factor of how quickly your internet can go and how much disk space you have. Fees, when it comes to card network, the merchant's paying the fees. With Bitcoin, the consumer's paying the fees, so it's much better for the business. When it comes to settlement, it takes time, up to 72 hours for the money to come into the business's account. With Bitcoin, if I came to your store and purchased something, you get that Bitcoin immediately, which means you can transact with that value immediately and not have to wait for that money to come into your account. With fraud and chargeback, that's just how the entire system is designed. They can claw back the money anytime they want. With Bitcoin, that money is not being clawed back. It's being cut at the bottom, but privacy. I used to work for a bank, so I can legitimately tell you that there's somewhere on some executive's table, there's anonymized data sitting that says something along the lines of, the demographic of 25 to 35-year-olds go to Queen West at these days and spend an average of $250 between these times. Yes, it's anonymized, but all this information is being aggregated and shared and being sold. It's first-hand experience. Bitcoin, you've got way more privacy because you don't need any of the information required as a traditional bank. So how does a business get started? This presentation wasn't more so on the how, more so the why, but I did want to touch on this. First, educate yourself. Don't go into this blind eye. Don't listen to anyone that says, I'll make you money. Bad sign. Learn before you start. Easiest way is you can set up a wallet, you can download a wallet, today before you leave, and then you integrate your Bitcoin payment with your traditional payment system or your payment rails, whatever that is. You have to obviously promote it, so you got to let your customers know we now accept Bitcoin payments. Maybe give them an incentive, give them a discount, give them a freebie, but give them something to entice them to start spending that Bitcoin. And of course, the pinnacle would be if you run your own node, then you can accept payments through your own node. Go ahead.
I think one of the biggest question marks is the tax implications of actually accepting and transacting in Bitcoin for a business.
CRA, that's the question.
So what are the ways to deal with that?
Yeah, I'm not an accountant, so my typical answer is you should probably speak to your accountant based on what your comfort level is. So
is anyone here from Tahini's or representing Tahini's? Because I know that Tahini's is big Bitcoin supporter, of course, but they don't accept Bitcoin, and that's
they don't accept it?
They don't accept it as a payment because it's too much of a pain in the ass.
I could have sworn that I saw a video of Pierre.
They stop because the POS system needs to integrate, and if they accept Bitcoin payment, then they don't know what they sold for.
Oh, it's an accounting thing for them?
Yeah. So they're trying to pressure their POS system.
So they save in Bitcoin is what they do.
Their corporate treasury, not payments yet.
Until the laws catch up, right? Until it's recognized as a currency, as it's
they're just collecting Bitcoin and holding it right now.
I mean, it's a taxable event technically when you sell, but I do know I don't know what the regulation actually is for when accepting, because typically when you go buy a good right now, there's HST. So knowing the government, they're going to want an HST for that Bitcoin transaction. So it doesn't seem like that's anywhere close to being enforced, or they have any idea that that's how they'd see it. If I had to predict and make an educated guess, it's likely where it's going to go, but I don't see that in current state. But I'm not an accountant. Please speak an accountant and deal with it. Ask for your comfort level.
Yes, there's accountants that specialize in these type of things. So you have
And
to
there are very
speak
few
to
of
get,
them.
yeah,
There are very
to get
few.
a bit more granularity. But anyways, continue.
Yes.
So who are the businesses that, I don't know any business that accept Bitcoin as a payment?
Yeah.
That I use every day, like like say Walmart,
right,
or Costco or anything. Like, is there in GTA anybody who takes that well-known merchants that take Bitcoin as a payment?
BTCmap.org
Yeah.
or whatever the URL is.
I think the reality is most of the small businesses that do take BTC as payment, I think a lot of them, accounting-wise, they're treating it as under the table cash kind of deal.
Yeah.
For most small businesses. I mean,
sure.
Yeah. So because of the difficulty of bookkeeping, especially if they're selling, doing a lot of transactions, like small price items, I think it's very difficult to do bookkeeping. So.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's the small businesses that start with it.
I mean,
the bigger juggernauts have more
Yes.
they got the regulations and the laws kind of looking down on them all
Okay,
the time.
guys, have this conversation after the presentation.
Yeah. But to answer your question, there's no large, well-known global corporation. Tesla, initially announced it, but I think they revoked it. So they're going to fluctuate based on the market. To this gentleman's point, yes, it's going to be the small business owners and the medium businesses that are really they're going to start. But like Matt said, there is btcmaps.org that you can go and check, and that has a list of all the businesses that accept Bitcoin.
And then coin card, you can buy Bitcoin.
Yes, there's multiple websites and services that you can transfer Bitcoin to Visa card or Sephora card, gift card, Amazon card, and you can transact accordingly. Now,
I'll go back. You're at promote Bitcoin, and then the next you said run the node.
yes, so run a node is the pinnacle where you're interacting and accepting Bitcoin more securely and more privately. So, if you get a hardcore Bitcoiner, they'll say, yeah, you need to run a node, but if you're only getting one person pay you once a month, the node isn't ideal. Start with the wallet, and then you can work your way up to a node as you get more payments.
How many transactions is a node?
Sorry.
How many transactions would a node have?
The node is just it's the entire blockchain downloaded on a computer. So that's what a node really is.
Yeah.
So
how
it's
many
not
transactions in a blockchain then?
all the transactions since the genesis of Bitcoin.
Right.
So I don't know, we're just past 800,000 blocks. So how many ever transactions in a block times that is how many transactions there are. In terms of pushing Bitcoin, so what can you do? Going back to your question, we're not there yet. We're super early. We need another 10, 20, 30, 40. I don't know what timeline, but that's why this group is only this small amount. We're not at a stadium yet, but I'm sure at some point there'll be a stadium talking about these items. Go ahead.
So wasn't there like many years ago, I heard a story that some pizza guy sold a pizza for
yeah, in 2000,
and like it's worth $300 million if they get them.
Yes.
So like they were doing transaction buying pizza back then, and this I'm talking about, this must be like 10 years ago, whatever.
Yeah.
So that time period, they haven't actually gotten to a point where everybody could accept it just as easily.
Well, I would say the technology is there where you can scale it. Like I've seen pretty massive venues accept Bitcoin. So it's a question more, I would say technically.
I don't know if anything.
I have